Hello students, nice to see you back, or rather I'm back with a bio lecture. As we did the first two chapters, I now take up a topic from zoology. Let me just briefly tell you that biology is broadly classified into botany and zoology. Botany is study of plants and zoo means animals, logy means study. Zoology is study of animals. So since I did first and second chapter, let me go with the next chapter, which is related to zoology, where I take up the chapter animal tissues. Right? So let me start animal tissues. It's all about tissues in us. If I say in us, I need to say all the animals. A little bit of basics let me do and then proceed. You know that in my first lecture, I remember I told you that cell is the basic unit of life. Here I put up a cell. And when a group of cells, then we call it a tissue. Group of tissues, they make an organ. Say kidney, heart, lungs, soul. Group of organs, they make a system. For example, digestive system is group of organs like pancreas, liver, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, rectum, colon. They all together make a system, which is your digestive system. And these group of systems, they make an organism. Right? Now here you notice that this one cell, when I group it up, many cells, where we see the tissue. And I take up the topic today is animal tissues. All tissues related to animals. Now, to understand these animal tissues, let me mention something about plant tissues. Maybe that will ring something in your mind. Something might come up in your mind. In your lower classes, you would have heard of plant tissues, where you would have heard of tissues like parenchyma, collenchyma, sclerenchyma. See, I don't want to directly jump into animal tissues. Let me talk 2-3 words about plant tissues and then go to animal tissues. I'm sure in your lower classes you would have heard of sclerenchymatous tissue, collenchymatous tissue, parenchymatous tissue. Similarly, we animals, we are also having tissues. And in detail, the study of tissues, it's a very important term. The structure and the functions of tissues, we call it as histology. Like the study of cell, we call it as cytology. The study of tissues, we call it as histology. this chapter, we'll cover up number 1. We'll talk about epithelial tissue. This is T standing for tissue. We'll talk about connective tissue. We'll study about muscular tissue, and we'll also study about nervous tissue. We'll cover up. These are the 4 major tissues in bee animals: epithelial, connective, muscular, and nervous. Let me go in detail with the epithelial tissue. Students, you have to remember these important terms. Why I tell you, when you are listening to these lectures, video lectures, I have already suggested you to carry a scrap notebook or a bio notebook or a highlighter, where at certain points I want you to highlight certain terms, because these are all your MCQs. These MCQs, they fetch marks, or if you're not thorough, you lose marks. So here, highlight this term. I start with epithelial tissue. Epi means on, top, above. So many terms I am giving you, synonyms. Surface. Epi means top, on, up, above, surface, जो भी बोलो. Thelial is tissue. So you find these tissues on top of any organs or your total body viscera. Viscera is your total body organs, all fitted inside. Like, suppose I give you a gift. This is a gift I am giving you. I don't give it openly. We wrap it up. We put a covering. Similarly, our organs, they have a covering. If I say covering, the first thing that should come into your mind is, if I say covering, see, you keep your valuables covered, your food covered. Why? Mainly is protection. So all our organs and overall all your systems, they are covered with this epithelial layer. Main reason is for what? For protection. So that these tissues, nothing is going inside or no pathogens infect them. The invasion is very severe, then your tissues are infected. But the covering is for what? For protection. The main function is for protection. Now, there are few characteristics that go along with epithelial tissue. These epithelial tissue, number 1, they have a supportive basement membrane. A basement membrane which is at the base, and the cells are placed right above the basement membrane, and the cells are, remember, this is just a rough diagram I am drawing, nothing in particular, nothing specific, just to discuss the characteristics. There is a basement membrane and the cells are placed on the basement membrane, but the cells are compactly packed. You notice that there is no intercellular spaces. Between the cells, there is no space, they are compactly packed. Compactly bound, no intercellular spaces. Right? Now these two features, and mostly these layers, they don't have direct supply of blood, meaning the blood capillaries here are very meager, very less. So here the blood supply is negligible. So these are the main three characteristics that go about with the epithelial tissue. And when I am discussing about epithelial tissue, its types, these three characteristics are applicable to those tissues. Now, I mention the types of epithelial tissue. Right now I will mention, but each I will take up in detail and explain. Here, remember, in this chapter the diagrams are all marks oriented topics. From this chapter, if no explanation is asked, sketches are asked, so be very thorough and serious about the diagrams. Epithelial types, number 1 is squamous epithelial tissue. Number 2, cuboidal. I am just mentioning. Number 3, columnar. Number 4, ciliated. Number 5, glandular. Number 6, sensory. Number 7, germinal epithelial. I am just mentioning the names now. Each I will go in detail. Squamous, cuboidal, columnar, ciliated, sensory, germinal and glandular. Let me go with squamous. In squamous epithelial tissue, this feature goes without saying. Here I draw a supportive basement membrane. I am writing only the initials, be alert. And here I group up the squamous cells. Remember, they are compactly packed with a centrally placed oval nucleus. You can see it very clearly. Of course, the cytoplasm is there. Cell means what? What are the two things coming into your mind? Nucleus and cytoplasm. You notice that the margin is wavy. We use a special term. See, you have to get used to these bio terms. These we call it as serrated margin. Serrated. Wavy. Can you see this? I have drawn wavy margin. Boundary, margin. This squamous epithelial tissue, they are fitted or they are located, and since they are compactly packed, they look like a footpath, the tiles fitted on the footpath. You know, footpath is called as pavement. So we call this squamous epithelial tissue also as pavement tissue. So if I talk about pavement tissue, you must understand I am talking about squamous. Squamous is also called as pavement tissue because of what nature? Because they are compactly packed and they resemble like a arrangement of tiles on the footpath. Footpaths, another term is pavement. Right? Now you find this tissue location mainly. Again, a very rough diagram I am drawing, but immediately you will strike a bell this in abundance inside your lungs, where you have a bunch of tissues like this. I'm sure you would have seen in your lower classes, seen or learned, maybe not in detail but briefly. We call this as alveoli tissue. So you find this squamous epithelial tissue in abundance in the alveoli, which is found in the lungs. You also find it on top of your organs like pancreas, liver. You find it wrapped up above. So this was all about squamous tissue. Next I go up with under epithelium. Let me erase this and pick up some space. The second one I go about is cuboidal epithelial tissue. Here again, diagram of major importance. This is the basement membrane. Found on it group of cells which are cube-like. You can very distinctly see that they have a broader anterior and a narrow posterior. They have oval nucleus. Of course, you will see the cytoplasm. And here you find them in your glands, especially in your thyroid gland. Even you'll find it in pancreas. And their main function here is, please note, absorption. Their main function here is absorption. Here they are actively taking part in absorption of nutrients, absorption of gases. So, cuboidal, their major role is in absorption. The third type is of epithelial tissue is columnar. Columnar, they are, I make few changes here. One thing goes, they have the basement membrane, they have column shaped cells like these. They have nucleus, but more towards the base. A very exclusive feature you find on these columnar cells is, here I put it up. Never forget this, again exam oriented topic, highlight, circle, whatever, but it should draw your attention. They have outgrowth like this, finger-like outgrowth. They have finger-like outgrowth. Can you see finger-like outgrowth? We call this finger-like outgrowth as microvilli. I repeat, we call this finger-like outgrowth as microvilli. Villi itself means finger-like processes. Micro means small. Now this microvilli, its major role is absorption. Its major role is absorption. You find this in abundance in your intestines. You find this tissue in your inner lining of your intestines, so that whatever we are eating, the nutrients, they get very well absorbed. Because of this microvilli, students, just use your logical this reasoning. Because of this microvilli, the surface area of the tissue is more, so the absorption rate is also more. More nutrients are absorbed. So here today we completed, or rather we started with animal tissues. We did some introduction where we saw we will study 4 animal tissues. I took up epithelial. Under epithelial I took up squamous, cuboidal and columnar. Columnar location abundantly found in your inner lining of your intestines, and their major role, very active role in absorption. So I end up the lecture here, and next time I will continue from here. Thank you, students.